Hello and welcome to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Every single week we bring to you a new program about education, technology, innovation, and humanitarian service. My name is Mitty Chain. I'm the president of this Rotary Club. I'm really excited this week that we're going to be introducing to you Brett, and I'm going to briefly talk to you guys a little bit about Brett first, and then we'll have him take over. But Brett Kopf is the former CEO and co-founder of Remind, a secure messaging app that connects teachers, students, and parents. Brett grew up in Skokie, Illinois, and was diagnosed with ADD and dyslexia in 5th grade. He graduated from Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics in 2010. When school was challenging for him growing up, support from his high school teacher, Mrs. Whitefield, along with his parents, helped him graduate. Brett realized that if he could empower the Mrs. Whitefields of the world to connect with students and parents, education could improve. Brett and his brother were named to Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2012, and their company has been connecting students with teachers and parents. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Brett. Brett, please take it away.
Great. Well, I think you told a big part of our story, so I don't know how much value I'm going to have to add there. Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. I thought I could just spend 5 minutes and give a bit of a quick history and context about the company, explain what our strategy is, and then more importantly, our vision for where we're trying to go and how we're trying to make an impact on the world's teachers, students, and parents. And then it seems that we'll turn back to questions. So in the way back machine, the whole reason I started this company, Remind, is because I'm going to take these off because there's a glare. In 5th grade, I was diagnosed with a wealth of disabilities, and school is very hard for me. I basically spent 15 years really struggling with my education. And it's not because I'm stupid or was stupid. I just learned very differently. And the system that I was brought up in, it didn't really cater to that. And I had this incredible teacher in high school, which you alluded to, named Miss Whitefield, who totally changed my life. And my parents were very involved in my education. And so at the core, what we believe is that if we could figure out how to increase parental engagement at huge scale and help make teachers do their job better at huge scale, it can have a very, very big impact in the education system. That's it. It's very simple. And so we built Remind. Now, I started it quite a while ago with my brother, David. I started it about 8 years ago. I've been at this for a bit. We failed for the first 4 years, which I'm happy to talk about. But in the last, call it, 4.5, 5 years, we've grown very quickly. And we got into this program called Imagine K-12, which is now part of Y Combinator, that really taught us the fundamentals of building a good product. And we spent an immense amount of time talking to teachers, literally hundreds. In the span of 10 weeks, we talked to about 250 teachers one-on-one and learned about all the issues that exist in education. Today, like clockwork, about 8,000 kids drop out of school every single day. It equates to 1.2 million kids a year. The upstream economic effects on that are enormous, and so we're very moved and focused on trying to solve that problem. And we built the first version of Remind by trying to understand all these problems for our teachers. So there's a lot of safety issues that existed in education. Teachers were still using things like physical checks and receipts and paper permission slips, and we really wanted to solve those problems. And so we built Remind, and what we are is a very simple modern messaging app that's built for messaging in schools, and we've grown very quickly. We have over 1 in 10 Title I teachers actively using Remind. Title I meaning they receive funding from the government. We deeply care about access, so the product works in some of the lowest income districts in the country. It works over web, mobile apps, and SMS. We're growing pretty fast. We just announced today, actually, that we surpassed 20 million active users. We'll add anywhere from 200,000 to 400,000 a day. We have a large majority of the United States teachers actively using Remind, and this was all very bottoms up. So if you can't tell by my personality, I'm obviously quite animated, but we really believe in teachers, that they provide some of the best leverage to help improve the education system. And so we are hell-bent and focused on building a really incredible product for them, but also seeing the world through their lens. Meaning when we build products for students or parents or administrators or teachers, we always think, how will this affect a teacher? Will this make their lives better? Will this make their lives more efficient? And so we've grown quite fast. We've been really fortunate in that respect. And We're really excited about the impact the product's having. They'll use it for reminders, for motivational messages. They'll use it for quizzes. If students have questions at 9 o'clock at night, they'll take a picture of their homework assignment and send it to a teacher. One of the features we just launched about a month ago is called Activities, which is our first revenue feature, which makes it incredibly easy for a user, a teacher, a student, a parent, or even a principal to create an event, a field trip, or a fundraiser, and then the subscriber can RSVP and say they're either coming or not, and actually pay. And so some people are paying $500 on Remind, $800, $200, $10, $15. And what we're really focused on is making that connection between the teacher and the student, or the teacher and the parent, highly, highly efficient. So that's sort of the state of the union on where we are at now. The company has raised quite a bit of capital. We've raised $59 million from John Doerr, who's an investor at Kleiner Perkins, and a VC firm called Social Capital. Chamath Paltapia, who's the vice president of Facebook, is on our board, and then also First Round Capital. So most all of our investors are Silicon Valley growth investors. We have about 75 full-time employees in San Francisco. I'll do a quick scan. Hopefully this won't make anyone dizzy. This is our office. I'm in one of the corner rooms right now. And most importantly, our vision is to give every student an opportunity to succeed. And notice I switched the words there. I am truly dyslexic. We want to give every single student an opportunity to succeed. And that was really bred out of the ethos that if Miss Whitefield didn't exist for me, I would have never had the chance to do what I'm doing today, and being so honored to work with some really, really smart people to help make a very big impact. And so we want to give every student their version of Miss Whitefield. I think that should cover it, and that's us in a nutshell. Let me pause there, and you could switch to asking some questions. I hope it was helpful.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Brett. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the first 4 or 5 years of the company. You mentioned that you guys were kind of struggling during the first few years. Maybe you could talk a little also about the path to being fully funded as a startup as well.
Well, the first 4 or 5 years was hard. I'm not going into too much detail because it's just boring. We didn't really understand what problem we were solving, and we didn't understand the problem we were solving because we didn't talk to our users. And we didn't talk to our users because we were stupid and arrogant and didn't know how to actually build products. We just didn't understand how the world worked. We're very passionate, as you can tell. Like, that was this times 10 years ago. But I just didn't have a direction. So when we got out to Imagine K-12, they really helped be that guiding light and saying it's really critical that you talk to users and you try to understand their problems. So that was the switch. We didn't stop because we believed in what we were doing so much. We believed that if somehow we were able to achieve this crazy vision, that it can have a very big impact on the world. So it was a bit naive. From a fundraising capital standpoint, the cadence was, first we got into Imagine K-12, raised about $25,000, and they took a small percentage in equity. Then in the next year, we ended up raising $1 million from First Round Capital and a bunch of angel investors, then a $3.5 million A, then a $15 million B, and then subsequently in September of 2014, raised a $40 million C. Advice on raising money. So the best time to raise money is when you have it, you don't need it, and you're growing really quick. It's an important point. You have it, you don't need it, and you're growing fast because it gives you a bunch of leverage. And at that point, we had the leverage. We were growing really, really well. We were and still are very confident with how the business is growing. And I learned a lot about telling stories from that. I wasn't always good at it, and I'm sure I'm average at it now. But in the beginning, it was very difficult. And you kind of have to think about who your audience is when you're talking to investors. They're different from a customer or like a recruit that you're trying to bring in the door. They think a bit differently. And so wrapping my head around that was really, really important. And the other part of that was just hiring a team was just excellent. We have people who are in leadership positions at Facebook, Instagram, Skype, Google, Twitter, who have a lot of experience in like extremely fast growing companies. And they were very helpful also, not only helping us grow the product and team, but also helping us formulate our strategy.
Awesome. You mentioned talking a little bit about your users and learning from them. And I'll take this opportunity to thank our immediate past president, Rushton Hurley, for bringing this opportunity to us. And Rushton is a former educator. He's a principal, a teacher in his life. And a lot of our members are actually educators. So we have a lot of teachers in our group. I know that a little bit digging in your website that you guys also have a Remind advisory board. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about what that board does and maybe how you guys interact with talking to teachers about getting feedback for Remind.
Yeah, no, it's great. And Russian, I don't know if he's watching this, but he was one of the first principals, or I should say educators, that we ever met in the Valley. This was like 4 years ago, and he was nice enough to meet me when we were just getting started. So user feedback is very much at the core of our company ethos and our culture. It started with me answering every support ticket one by one. And we've really scaled that throughout the company. So we've had a very bottoms-up approach in growing as a business. Every employee in the company, myself included, answers tickets every single week. We have about 10 former teachers on staff. We visit multiple schools every week. We have multiple usability tests every week. And we answer all of our social media via Twitter or Facebook directly. We think it's very important to have a very close relationship. We also have a few groups. So we have Remind Connected Educators, our Remind Advisory Board, who's our administrators, and we talk to them about a bunch of stuff. But the basic belief is that we want to involve them as partners in the company, because they are the consumers, and they're like the people who are actually on the ground experiencing these problems. So we try to have a very lockstep relationship with them so we can understand the problems that are happening inside their classrooms. So whether it's us asking for feedback on features or talking to them about us building a product and getting their feedback on it, or like deploying a product and asking for the help on marketing it, we really view them as partners in the business, and it's helped quite a bit.
That's awesome. Maybe you could also talk a little bit about what are the biggest struggles that you guys often encounter on a day-to-day basis when you're working with your teachers. Is it maybe something that it's more of a user training issue sometimes, or is it more of just a general promotion issue about not a lot of people knowing about Remind?
Yeah, I'd say there's two things. At this point, we have pretty significant scale, but the problem still exists at the top of the funnel. So people just not knowing that we exist. And once they find out about it and they start using it, the stickiness is incredible. They never go. We have very, very high engagement and retention. They just keep coming back because it solves a very real problem. So that's one of the things we're pretty focused on, is how do we fill people at the top of the funnel to get more people to know about and use Remind. We're adding 2, 3, maybe 400,000 users a day. We send billions of messages. We're growing very fast. We went from 2 employees to about 100 people in the span of 3 or 4 years. And so figuring out how to manage that type of scale and get incredible people is a very difficult thing to do.
Definitely. So maybe you can talk a little bit about back a little bit more to the origin story. So you maybe for those of our viewers who are maybe interested in starting their own company and maybe they haven't yet, or maybe some of our viewers who we also have some youth program viewers sometimes, so high school students and college students who watch our program. What are some words of wisdom you'd like to impart to them in terms of the path to starting your own company, and maybe how much of your education and your university degree actually played a part into what you're doing today?
So the first is to really think deep about the problem you're solving and why it's important. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who start companies that are building another accounting system, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what they're very passionate about. I personally don't get excited about building that. I want to build something that can make a big impact on the education system versus just making another buck. I think we can make $1 and have a big impact. So connecting to the why, like why they actually exist, because it is long and hard. And if they're just in it for the money, they're going to fail over and over again, just because it's too hard. There needs to be a deeper why. The second thing, more tactically and a product standpoint, is it's really important that you do 3 things, in my opinion. Talk to your users constantly. So define who they actually are and go have coffee with them. Like, make a goal for yourself to talk to 20 or 30 people in 2 weeks. Build a very simple product based on talking to them and solve a problem. So talk to your users, build a simple product and solve a problem. It's the same framework that we use for starting the company, and to a cool down extent, it's what we've used to really help scale our current business. We try to percolate throughout the culture. One of our values is create simplicity for others, internally and externally. So as I communicate to you, as we think about building products, as we talk to a remote advisory board, it's constantly us personally think about how can we build simple things and communicate simple things for other people, because our users are very busy and we want to be able to deliver value as fast as possible. So remember the why, and always to connect to why you're doing this. Build a very simple product, talk to your users constantly, and solve a problem.
Thank you for sharing that. So today is a very big day for you guys. You guys also introduced a new CEO, Brian Gray, I think. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about where you see Remind going in the next few years, but also how your role with Remind is really changing as well.
Yeah, so we're super excited about having him. It took me a little bit to recruit him because he's very experienced, but I really wanted a partner to help us scale in the next phase of the business so I can do more things like this. I could talk to our teachers and students and parents and administrators. And so my time is going to be spent on the ground, on the front line of the community, visiting schools, understanding our users' problems to help inform our product and community. And where the company is going, we really believe in building the communication pipe. So helping teachers, students, and parents communicate really, really efficiently. And connecting them, we feel very, very strong about that. So we're going to continue to focus on building the product for our users, continue to focus on growth, and also continue to focus on building this highly engaging activities product that we released over the last month.
Are there any plans on expanding Remind past the US and also providing some multilingual support? Absolutely.
So you can actually translate Remind into 90 different languages right now. We will definitely focus on international. From a sequencing perspective, right now we're just focused domestically on the US market.
Okay, that's great. And then so for some of our members who are educators, and so we have members also around the world in Japan, Canada, South Africa, Australia, and whatnot. If they're interested in maybe bringing and promoting Remind to some of the schools in their area, are there any tools or any kind of digital documents you guys have available that they can kind of share with some of their administrators?
Absolutely, yeah. If they just go to our homepage at remind.com, and in the bottom, there's a few things that says Learn More Community, and we've built out all of the resources to help you share videos, PDFs, slides that explain whether you're a teacher, a student, parent, or administrator, how the product and service actually benefits and helps you.
Awesome. Are there any success stories that you can really think of right now that you want to share with us?
For our users, we honestly have thousands. So I don't have anyone individually, but we have thousands that we hear every week, and increasing teacher efficiency, kids being excited because their their teacher are actually messaging them on the service that they communicate on, which is a mobile phone, and parents being more involved in their kids' education. So many of our parents have 2 full-time jobs, but they're able to quickly get a message via text or push, see their kid, immediately respond to the student or to the teacher, and it creates that instant connection between them.
Terrific. And so we just have time for just a couple more questions, but I was also wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the security behind Remind, since I know that especially when dealing with a student, teacher, and sometimes parent situation with communication, a lot of people are a little bit concerned sometimes with security.
Yeah, so we take security really seriously, and we abide by a lot of the privacy and safety laws. So there's COPPA compliance, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. It's a mouthful. There's FERPA compliance. We have an iKeepSafe certification, which is an industry standard best practice for making sure that you're protecting student data. So we abide by all those things, and we make sure we actually have an entire team called STEM that's focused on safety and security for our users.
That's awesome. Well, Brett, so we're just about out of time. So I was wondering if you have any closing comments, and then I'll close out the program.
I don't think so. Thanks for having me, and I hope everyone finds this valuable and do something that makes an impact and that you really care about.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Brett, for joining us. Our guest this week, again, has been Brett Kopf, co-founder of Remind, a secure messaging system for teachers to interact with students and parents and vice versa. Check them out at remind.com. Thank you again, Brett, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. And underneath this video, there'll be a link to remind.com, as well as some more information, articles related to Remind. Please go ahead and also leave a comment at the bottom of this meeting. Thanks again for joining us, everyone.